turn on your camera.
How do I sound? Do I sound good?
You sound all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I'm turning on the video. Wait.
Okay.
It's just gonna be
How do I
like
do
porn.
this? No, it's not going to be porn. I mean, maybe, but not intentionally.
It's gonna be homosexual only.
Damn, nice
Okay,
angle, dude.
right.
All right.
This is a great angle.
We've got Glink on the show. Did you watch... Okay, let me ask you first of all. Did you watch last week's episode of RFC? It's totally fine if you didn't. I'll catch you up.
I'm not all caught up on
You're not all caught
AugieRFC, no.
So there's been a lot of like questions and rumors and circulations around your Lightwave event that you hosted. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. It was right after VidCon. And so, you know, a lot of people in the chat were like, yo, you guys should get Glink on. I believe Tom reached out to you and then you reached out to me and we brought you on the show here to talk about Lightwave because, you know, even you yourself acknowledged that there's tons of confusion about the event, you know, why it was marketed the way that it was, what happened to some of the guests, how, you know, it ended up happening and stuff like this. Like, what was the purpose for it? You know, there's a lot of confusion around it. So I just wanted to go over that. So tell us what your goal was with Lightwave.
My goal with Lightwave. The goal is not something that was so simple. I think at one point, the best way I described it was it's a meeting point for the engineers and artists of our time. And, you know, that is even in itself kind of vague. Really what it was for is to make new connections that are not limited by the limitations of internet spaces, of Twitter, of YouTube, of Discord, where, sure, you know, you can meet people, you can have an audience, you can debate people, whatever, you can meet other creators even, but it sort of always feels like you're going through a filter when you do. It feels like you're in this bubble, whether it's due to an algorithm or just whatever your community of friends is. You're kind of in a certain bubble of the internet. And it's like, you and I can name several creators that are big deals to us that have large followings,
right?
That some average person on the street would have never even heard of. At this event, there was plenty of people who didn't even know who Louis Rossmann was, and yet there was plenty of people who showed up specifically for Curtis Yarvin. And then outside of those people, like nobody knew who Curtis Yarvin was. So the whole point was to bring together communities and individuals, you know, both the creators and some of their audiences, to a place where their ideas can be shared in an open way, where they can just meet people from different perspectives who also have followings. It's just sort of a place where the creatives can share in what they're doing without like a corporate structure to it.
Okay, so without like the limitations of like Discord and Twitter's like terms of service, I would assume, right?
Sure, terms of service, but even think about a physical space and where that physical space is. You know, in Anaheim versus Austin, there's a big difference. For example, something I was comparing it to is VidCon, obviously not in terms of the scope or like the attendance or even how it's structured, but in terms of VidCon is explicitly for the purpose of bringing together online creators, but what started out as a YouTube kind of centric convention is now like this TikTok, you know, pay $200 for a ticket for like exclusive access to the second floor where you meet all these other like pretentious creators you've never heard of. I don't know. It feels to me like very networky and very, it feels like Nickelodeon or like KidsCon for the most part.
Wouldn't the point of coming to this also be to network with the engineers and artists of our time?
Oh, sure, for sure, but not in a way that's like you're not going there explicitly, you know, because it's a place to meet TikTokers or it's even a place to meet YouTubers. You're just going because, okay, if you're somebody who is into Right to Repair or Louis Rossmann, for example, and you watch him, it might be interesting to hear Louis Rossmann share his perspective with somebody else on stage, somebody else with a following that is maybe in a related community or something that could be related. I think Right to Repair, like as a concept, does translate to a lot of tech-oriented communities, for example.
Okay, so we have that here. Now, a lot of people were, confused about like the marketing of the event. They were like, you mentioned there's something about bringing back like classic Rome or like sort of like the, that type of room there. And so some people were like confused. They're like, wait, is this a convention for YouTubers to hang out, or what kind of like big ideas are we discussing here? I guess like, I don't know.
Well, those are all seen or heard on the panels that we did. I don't think there's anything that radical even discussed. I think the most radical thing was probably Curtis Yarvin's whole political philosophy of monarchism, and nobody really even agreed with him on stage about it. But it's interesting to hear somebody advocate for that in a modern sense. So I think Yarvin is interesting for that reason. But I don't think I agree with it.
Okay. Now,
so and it was just cool to see Rossman and like Curtis Yarvin and this crypto guy and like. Also, I am a fan of Matt Tabor's work with Create Unknown, so personally, it was cool having him on for every panel, and I thought he was a great moderator. And he's someone who's like from the YouTuber community. Like he's someone that you guys have all, probably interacted with before. He's had plenty of our mutual friends and creators on his podcast.
Right.
So like the whole, it's trying to bring together people from different communities who maybe just value some basic things like free expression. I would say free speech, but that's kind of cringe and have like a sort of political connotation. But I just mean free expression of any kind, whether it's through communication or art or how we express ourselves online. Like I think we all agree that there's a value to that being allowed.
Sure, yeah.
So I would say, but I'm also not trying to like shove an agenda. So like I mentioned that as like a value that I think the event promotes, but I'm not
I gotta
telling
ask
people
you.
they have to.
I gotta ask you this though, because there was like a lot of confusion about some of the guests, right? You'd mentioned that Boogie was going to be there, and Destiny, and people that were more YouTube centric, right? And Boogie ended up putting up a tweet saying that he had never heard of it, and Destiny said, "Well, it seemed like there was some contention as to why Destiny didn't show up. Destiny, I believe, also claimed he didn't hear about it, but then told you that something personal came up. What was the deal with some of these guests that were more YouTube-centric that didn't appear there?"
Okay. Boogie was never invited. That was a joke. I thought that was obvious. The trailer, people totally don't understand the trailer, and that's fine because it actually does more marketing than people totally understanding it. But the trailer
so you wanted
is a
the trailer
hype
to be
video.
confusing to build up some sort of like curiosity around the event.
It's a hype video. The trailer is
like,
literally
even if it's like a hype video, you're running this like convention where people are supposed to come have these thought-provoking debates. So it's like, is it supposed to be like a joke, or is it supposed to be like, performance art, or like an actual convention? Because at that point, it's like we're kind of deviating away from the serious,
it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be totally serious. That's the thing. That's why I went on stage and had a PowerPoint with watermark PNGs on it, because it's like not. I was trying to actually. If I was a bit more charismatic, it would have been 2070 Paradigm Shift V2, because I was trying to just kind of keep it lighthearted, but also somewhat like I'm not lying when I say there's a reason that. We need a public forum, or why I'm hosting this for that purpose. I do mean that, but it's not meant to take myself so seriously, or like this event is like, oh, this is gonna change everything. It's just like, okay, here's a new idea, let's try it out, and here's we want to have fun too. It's not just about serious debates or like thought-provoking intellectuals or whatever. It's just it's artists.
I will say
art installations. That's what we had. Art installations.
I will say this though, you're saying that it was a joke about Boogie and stuff, but a lot of people see that as like false advertising. And you were saying that you made your trailer like, sort of like just random for like
Do you think
the
we're going
intrigue
to airlift
factor.
Boogie to the event? Do you think we're going to airlift Boogie to the event so he could fire off warning
the airlift
shots?
thing sounds like a joke, but like the Boogie being there actually, like that comes off across as serious, especially when you announce other guests that weren't jokes, right? So what's the difference?
I mean, I thought me frantically yelling in an open warehouse that Boogie 2988 is going to be there repeatedly to myself like an insane person, while showing a low resolution JPEG of him saying featuring Boogie 2988 with the delayed fade effect
that
on the
also
text,
kind of insulting
given away that it was
serious artists too, like the serious people you brought. Like, okay, so
who was serious?
Lewis Rossman. Well, Lewis, isn't he supposed to be the serious one? Like, he's talking about serious.
I didn't
stuff
even know. Well, I put Lewis in as a joke because I didn't even know if he was coming or not. I had reached out to him at the time, or I thought I had reached out to him. Maybe I got the wrong email or something. But when I did reach out to him with the trailer mentioned, basically saying, hey, like, you know, sorry if that was abrupt, but I actually am interested. I actually am interested in having you at the event. I'm willing to cover your booking fees, your travel fees. And he was interested. So we made that work. So that's, you know, in a way, like what I'm saying is that the trailer served the purpose that it needed to, which was to not only get people talking about the event, which it did, but also...
But was this supposed to be an event? Because the way that this is managed makes it sound like this is a drinking party that went a little Project X.
No, it was a 2-day event from the start. Right. The concept was to have a forum and a party day, which day 2 was, and it was pretty epic. It was legendary. I have the exclusive footage. That was like Project X. Project
was day
Z,
2 supposed to be streamed?
No, it was never meant to be streamed. I have all the footage, though, exclusively on Glink on YouTube. The documentary's coming out. I'm editing it right now. It's going to be something like the Sam Hyde iDubbbz documentary, only it's a bit more personal, obviously, but there will be some familiar faces, and it'll be pretty interesting.
There's a whole narrative running around that, you know, you become like obsessed or addicted with like shrooms or psychedelics of some sort, right? What do you think about that? Like what do you have to say about that?
What do I have to say about people accusing people who don't know me?
Are you nuts? Are you a nut job?
Well, you mentioned before, you're doing a joke to come across as nuts in the trailer. That is one thing I think is interesting, right? Because a lot of people who watched that did actually walk away thinking that you were nuts, but not because
that is
you were joking.
The entire comment section. Yeah.
You know, that is the thing about me. You get a little sugar in me, and I start to go cuckoo. I get a little wacky. A little wacky.
Dude, you made like 4 Sam Hyde references in this one call.
No, it's more so his humor that I drive with in that sense, where it's like he's leaning into the cringe. I like that. I like leaning into the cringe. But that, to your point, I'm not like a druggie or I'm not insane. I'm ambitious. I'm a filmmaker. I'm an artist myself. I'm a very like emotional driven artist, but I try to be rational and logical when it comes to business and areas of life where I think you have to be serious.
Yeah. But I mean, okay, you just said that, but then you also like pitched an event where you didn't even contact the people in advance. You just like...
I did contact the people in advance. I contacted everyone that was confirmed. So, and then...
You just told us 5 minutes ago that you didn't even know that you contacted Lewis. You're like, I guess I must have hit you up, and then you put him in the event trailer. Yeah,
he was in the event trailer with a low-quality JPEG image with a question mark on the text.
So you didn't know. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was like, and Lewis Rossman? Maybe. Why not? Like, that's basically what it means.
You didn't even contact Boogie either.
No, I didn't contact Boogie because that was the flat out.
Why'd you put him in the event? So, okay, but like, see, you're like, I want to be serious in business. If I operated a business like that, I'd be laughed out of the fucking room. Rightfully so, you know? Like, you can't do that. Come on.
Why can't I do that?
Because it's completely unprofessional. That's why this is cringe.
The whole How can it be performance art? Not be professional because being professional is cringe and
then
lame.
Why the fuck are you talking about right to repair and monarchism and all that shit? What?
Because I'm talking about an event. I think events shouldn't be corporate and lame.
I guess
right to repair is to do with the legal system.
Well, is it corporate and lame to like contact your guests before you announce them? Is that
so? Okay,
really
would
lame?
you like me to explain? Would you like me to explain that?
Sure.
I can break it down for you. Okay, so before I put out the trailer, I had confirmed with Destiny, with Ariel Pink.
Wait, hold on. If the event isn't corporate, I just got to ask you this. Why was there VC funding? Isn't that corporate?
Well, if you want to get into the financials of it, which is sort of like a pretty big leap from what we're talking about right now.
No, because you just said this isn't supposed to be a corporate event, yet corporate people are astroturfing and financing it. Wait, what?
I wouldn't say astroturfing. I would say it was funded by partially funded by a VC that disassociated themselves from it and were not officially a part of the event in any capacity, and actually benefited pretty much nothing from it.
So then that's a corporate structure that's financing this non-corporate event.
No, what I'm talking about is the event itself is not, there was no
Right.
ticket fee, there was no guest list. Anyone could walk in, anyone could tune into the stream. The whole thing was put on. There was no badges. There was no, we weren't sponsored by somebody to promote an app or a website. None of that was part of this. But now, if you want to talk about where the funding came from, a lot of which was my own pocket, we can. But that's what I mean by it's not a corporate structured event. Whereas, VidCon.
So then why would the company give you money? Why would a corporate company give you the money to run this party or event? What was the incentive for them? Was it just
originally one of a representative from them was going to be on one of the panels, but they decided against doing it. They weren't interested anymore. But I ended up keeping the funding and making the most of it. That's the long and the short of it.
But do you understand how any corporate sponsor in any capacity takes away from the original ethos of what you were trying to tell us 5 minutes ago?
No, because I didn't say the original ethos is not to have somebody invest in your idea.
No, but you just said this wasn't supposed to be corporate. This is
yeah, and I just explained to you all the ways that it wasn't corporate. There was no.
But it was corporate because you just got money from the VC. Just because I don't. Oh, here's a counterpoint. Okay, let's say that I put $100,000 of my own funding into running an event. Right, I didn't charge anybody any tickets, but the event was clearly designed by me to push some sort of agenda, or I was trying to get some of my own panelists in there. At that point, you got a corporate structure giving you money, even if you don't charge for tickets. It doesn't make the event non-corporate.
Okay, well then let me clarify what I mean by corporate. Right. I don't mean corporate as the only adjective to describe the event, by the way. In fact, the main point was that it's about bringing people together from communities that are normally separate to express ideas freely. But on the corporate point you bring up, what I mean by corporate is it's not an event that's looking to promote a product or a website or an app or collect data or charge people for tickets, nor is it an event that's sponsored entirely by one of those things. So it was not sponsored. It was just Lightwave is an LLC I have. It's a company I have because to host something like this for tax purposes and all that, you should probably have a company rather than paying for it literally under your own bank account. But that's a more...
Is it? Let me ask you this.
Financial.
People are speculating that you paid an extra $10,000 for security for Destiny specifically, or I forget where exactly that came from, but I remember seeing that. Was that the case?
I paid an extra $4,000 for security, and that was
for Destiny or just for the event in general?
Or for the panelists at the event. Really, it was for the event in general, because that's what the security did. They were just hanging around the event in general. And honestly, it was definitely it was not necessary, it was an over precaution. And I did that in part because a lot of people around me were encouraging me to do that. And I was like, okay, well, sure. I just was kind of working with the people around me. So we went with it. But, to dispel a couple things, like I was saying before, for who we had confirmed, we had Destiny, Ariel Pink. At one point, we had Rusty Cage, but he had to back out soon after he confirmed his booking. So that was something. That's why he was cut from the trailer. At one point, we had Little Apostate, who's this Twitter. She's a journalist, and she's on Twitter. But she had to pull out because her dog was sick. She called me, let me know, but she wasn't even in the trailer. We had Negative XP from pretty early on, but I didn't want to make that publicly known because he's got a history of people showing up and causing trouble at his events. And I really didn't. I just kept him as a surprise guest, basically. Mm-hmm. The same thing with Curtis Yarvin.
Was he there at the event?
Yeah, he was on one of the panels. I mean, we have all the panels on the stream. I should probably clip those, and I probably will soon. But there was a total of 4 panels. One of them was Ariel Pink and Negative XP, and also this local DJ. It was a panel about artists of the digital renaissance. And Destiny was meant to be on the final panel with Curtis Yarvin, and I'd spoken with both of them. They both were interested. They were both down. Curtis was there. He showed up. Day of, I get a message from Destiny on Discord that, and keep in mind, I've been emailing him this whole time with his full itinerary, paying for everything, getting him a room, getting him the bookings. And he tells me that there's something personal that came up in New York, sends me like a frowny face, and he's like, can't make it. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'll be there tomorrow or something. I'm like, okay. So, last minute, we just end up having Curtis Yarvin and Louis Rossman. Rossman got on actually because of the trailer. I emailed him after, and he was like, oh yeah, that's fine. As long as you're willing to cover the flight, I might be interested anyway. So that ended up working out.
The other guests, Wang and Rusty, what about those guys?
Wang was never invited, and he was never told. No, he was not a joke. He was a visual that was brought up when I was talking about individuals creating great things on their own on the internet.
Okay.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind, and I'm not saying this is a gotcha or anything, or to like embarrass you or whatever. But I noticed that the IRL turnout was noticeably low. Was that basically what you expected, or were you expecting sort of a bigger turnout?
I didn't know what to expect. That's why we had the security. It was really hard to gauge because I intentionally kept the address out of all of the online promotion for this. And that was always the case, right up until the actual day of the event as well. I never let the address leak because, again, I wanted to avoid... I felt like it was a delicate situation where I have somebody like Negative XP and Ariel Pink, who are both these highly controversial artists in their own right, Curtis Yarvin as well, and I was planning on Destiny being there. So it was sort of like this powder keg of somewhat controversial people who've actually had history of like being at events that were somewhat rowdy because of whether it's their political leanings or whatever expressions they've made online, different things, right?
And why'd you set up all the rows of chairs then? What was that all about?
Well, I'm getting to that. So on one hand, there's this powder keg of people who, might attract the wrong crowd if we make the event too public and let the address be known publicly. But on the other hand, we do want people to show up, and we do want to fill up this venue, which was quite large. So I was thinking of doing local advertising, so just getting people from the local area to show up, which we did, just not as many as I was hoping for. I don't think we put up enough flyers or made them as eye-catching as we should have. Should have just said open bar at 5 p.m. and put the address, and probably we would have filled up all the seats. But
true,
what are you going to do? Because we did have the open bar at 5 p.m.
Right.
And Destiny did show up, by the way, at day 2 at the carnival, Lightwave Carnival. He did, yeah. He did. I shook his hand. I don't know. Apparently he was talking,
So he showed up to Austin,
talking
Texas
about me, but
doesn't he live in Florida?
I don't know where he lives, but he showed up, yeah.
I believe
he lives in Miami.
Yeah, Miami.
We talked,
So he showed up to the event on the second day, the day that wasn't recorded, and also the day that he didn't have a panel in?
No, it was recorded, just on camera, not on stream.
But you said you showed up. Did he like participate in any like panel on the second day or something like?
There was no panel. Second day wasn't a panel.
It was just partying.
It was a party day.
It was a live. It was a live band performing.
Damn, don't you feel like he kind of like screwed you over then? If he shows up for the party day, but not for the day where like the panels are going
but I'm not calling him out. I mean, I don't care. Whatever, but don't think it looks bad on me though, because I was doing everything professionally, quote unquote, that I had to. I confirmed everything with him, and he won't tell you otherwise. I know he's honest enough to say that. Like, if you ask him, he'll tell you, yeah, like something just came up, he couldn't make it, and that's what I'm telling you now too.
Okay.
So it is what it is. It happens.
I'm not drama baiting. I'm just fucking asking. Like,
no, I know, but the point is, like, with the trailer and with all of this is, to pull something like this off, you have to take some risks, and you can't necessarily overplan. I think that's true of any venture in life, is you have to have some flexibility, leave some room for being flexible and like changing things on the spot if need be, which is what we did with the last panel entirely, where it said Destiny was going to be there, and we instead had Rossman, Ben Woosley, and Curtis Yarvin on a panel together. But it worked, and there was an interesting conversation had, I think. I mean, the whole point is that it's not this highly structured event. To go back to that point about corporate structure and all that, is like, even the panels, which we had a timeline, we had a schedule, we had guests, we had topics, we had speakers, we had all that planned. Yeah, but honestly, at future events, at future things like this, it'd be cool to just have like an open mic where people can respectfully like air out their conversations on a public basis somewhat. That would be interesting. That would be cool. I would listen to that, like a public podcast almost. I don't know.
Are you going to be doing a... Yeah, I was about to ask, are you going to do Lightwave 2 next year?
There will be subsequent events. My focus right now is to make this documentary and see how it translates. I think it's going to be an interesting story, but we'll see how I tell it, because I'm still not done with it. But after that, I'll kind of gauge where I'm at. But I'll tell you this, there is like a more local grassroots effort to start sort of local art meetups out of my garage even, which has sort of turned into this open art studio.
Oh, really?
And so you know, if I can get like little drawing sessions here or something, that can build into a local artist event. You know, it doesn't always have to be a huge like production. And I didn't want thousands of people to show up. I didn't want this to be a convention like Anime Expo or VidCon or TanaCon or whatever, where there's too many people showing up and it just becomes a clusterfuck. That was another thing. I wanted the people who showed up to make genuine connections.
You pulled
everyone that went enjoyed it. Everyone that went.
Blink, can I ask you what everybody's thinking?
Well, let me just say that you pulled a reverse like TanaCon basically. Instead of having an event where
we took the TanaCon
people showed up. Yeah. You had an event
did it raw.
where less people showed up. So
we did it raw. And we invited locals only.
Yeah, was that always... So that was always the intention, like
locals
not
only?
To show the address and make it like a local only event, IRL.
Only the locals knew the address. The address was only public to people locally on flyers.
But you advertised on your YouTube channel, though.
But not with the address, intentionally so. The trailer didn't have the address, ever.
So
I don't know. I feel like
maybe this is where the confusion comes in, because the way you put it in the trailer was kind of that like, hey, we're doing it here in Austin, Texas, come down, when you really meant for the trailer to be like, hey, come watch it on live stream.
I don't think it was a misunderstanding. It was a misunderstanding.
It said that in text on the trailer. It says that in text. It says live streaming on YouTube, Rockfin, and Odyssey.
Wait,
do you feel like the way you presented the trailer kind of made it look like there was an actual in-person event happening?
Well, okay.
There was an actual in-person event happening
where people could show up to that were like
there was.
I'm talking about your YouTube audience.
Some of them did. These guys drove from like Arkansas or some shit. This guy, you could actually see him in the part of the live stream. He's like wearing all blue, huge guy. He's like, hey man, I drove here from like, was it Arkansas or Alabama or something? And I'm like, oh man, cool. Like, nice to see you. I didn't really have time to talk with him because I was busy like running the whole event from behind the scenes. So I was like, and on the stage and all this stuff, and I barely slept. But
was Alex Jones going to be there? Was Alex Jones going to be there? Because I heard that rumor.
At some point, there was an idea to have this upcoming documentary, Alex's War, be screened or premiered rather at the event, but that kind of ended up falling through. It would have been interesting, but that didn't end up happening.
How much did you pay for the entire event, out of curiosity, if you don't mind?
The total cost was, and about half of this was like out of pocket / credit and all that. I think it was around like 40,000.
Damn.
Whoa. Yeah, it was a lot.
So you went into this not really expecting to recoup that, basically?
No. I mean, I did this as an investment in an idea.
Do you regret it at all? Like,
no, this is great.
No,
this is the start of something. It's just going to take time.
Would you have changed?
Can I ask you a question?
Hold on. I'm asking the question. Would you have changed anything differently if you had to redo it?
Sure, of course. I would have been more aggressive. I probably would have put the address out at some point. I would have been more aggressive with the marketing. I would have done the flyers right. I was, again, being overly cautious, hence the security, the $4,000 alone of security. I was being overly cautious because of the guests that were there, and because some of them were controversial. Some of them had history of, unruly events in the past. So I even kept their names out of the trailer. there was a lot I wasn't showing people in the trailer, and there's a lot I wasn't telling people online, and that was all intentional.
Okay. And you don't abuse drugs, do you?
That's what I was going to ask. That's what I was going to ask.
Tell us about the shrooms.
Are you on psychedelics? Without incriminating yourself, I don't know where you live.
I am not on psychedelics. No.
Were you on them?
I have done mushrooms before. Yes.
Okay. So you just tried it or something?
I've done it a few times, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people do. Would you have the same stigma about somebody who is prescribed a ketamine treatment?
I'm not saying
but
I'm not saying it's a shame. I'm just asking because there's everybody right now in the community, like their entire meme is that you're
it's kind of it's kind of
and that this whole idea of Lightwave was like a fucking idea you came up with in the middle of a trip or something, right?
Maybe the Yellow Submarine album from the Beatles was an idea that Paul came up with in a trip, right? Like when he was on like shrooms or something. But if he executed the album well, and it was interesting, and it was good, and it was entertaining, why is that a bad thing? what does it matter?
Okay.
It just seems like kind of a loaded question, I think.
Look, I understand. I'm not saying you have to go into like your personal usage of drug. I'm just saying for the sake of the question, because that's the narrative, right? The narrative is that you're like a drug addict, and all of these recent strings of events and things that don't make sense to like the public is a result of like drug abuse, basically, right? So I'm just giving you a chance to respond to that.
The public has no idea about what my personal life is like, and that's intentional.
Glink, can I be upfront with you? We've known each other for a few years, right?
Who are you?
Aiden. I'm fucking Aiden. I've known you for years.
Why does your voice sound? Why does your voice sound different?
Who you are?
It's not his voice; it's his looks. He looks like a 50-year-old man.
What happened?
Like Harvey Weinstein.
Have you been abusing drugs?
Have I been? No.
Oh, that's a good question for Aiden.
Wait a second. I'm not the one that like staged this big fucking event that like nobody.
You should have seen Aiden at VidCon. Dude was a
Aiden. I think low key. Can I just ask you guys something collectively? Low key. I didn't know this. Originally the event was planned to be right after VidCon, but for some
I would have gone
because there was a mix up where I had to push it back a couple days. And that's kind of just what I had to stick to at some point. But the original plan was to have it a few days after VidCon so that it would make sense for people who were at VidCon to be like, okay, let me stop by in Austin maybe for like a couple days, see what's going on there.
It's like a 3-hour drive for me.
But that got fucked up.
Yeah, because when I found out it was on the same time as VidCon, I thought you were trying to pull like a Tanicon, like compete with them or something, or think you're better than VidCon or something.
I will say this, like the fact that the event, like how long did you have to change schedule before the event actually took place?
What do you mean?
Well, like when did the schedule have to change like to during VidCon from before, right? Because that seems like a radical like schedule change for like an event like this, right?
What happened was, I think it was something like, here's really why. This is a little bit like inside baseball, but what really happened was we were planning to co-host it with the Alex Jones premiere, and those dates would work best for them. So we kind of locked things in with the venue space with that in mind, but it was pretty much after that went through, or maybe there was like a window of time where I could have changed it looking back, but I guess I just didn't even think about VidCon at the time or whatever, and I just went with it. But that was like originally why it was changed to be the same time as VidCon, was to co-align with this other event, which didn't even end up happening. So
dude, in a way, like this, like the planning for this event sounds like it was hell to go through. Would you say that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually didn't do it all myself. The last couple weeks, there was this guy, his name is Joe, who was like on top of his shit. Like he had his notepad out. He was like helping with bookings, with callings. He was making sure like we had all the supplies we needed. The bartender was taken care of, and all this kind of stuff. He was helping me plan this event, and without him and like a couple other people who were helping me, it would have, I don't even know if I could have pulled it off. But everybody that went really enjoyed it. They had a good time both days. It was just like a lot of moments that you can't really see on the stream, unfortunately. And I think Yeah, that's like some of the camera angles do make it look bad that I've seen, like with all the empty chairs, and our setup could have been better. But I actually think, for the most part, everybody that went enjoyed it. I heard that resoundingly from everyone, and anyone you ask will probably tell you the same thing.
Ice Poseidon was there.
Ice Poseidon. Funny thing, I was almost going to have him on a panel, and looking back, I think I should have. That's maybe something I would have changed, because I should have just leaned into it, right? But here's the thing with Paul. He was helping me with the stream. He helped me set up the stream. He made sure it ran pretty smoothly. He made sure the quality was good. And because, I've been, I've been hanging out with him. I've been talking with him, and
you're really good friends with Ice.
Yeah, we're friends. Yeah,
Remember you went to bail him out when he got arrested?
Yeah. Wait,
bail him out?
At VidCon, remember he got arrested, and then you were like,
I didn't bail him out.
I'm going to go bail him, or you're going to go to the police.
Maybe I said that.
Aiden.
I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
You said we're going to go bail him out.
Maybe I said it as a joke.
What did Ice go to prison because he passed you the blunt? Like, what the fuck is this?
He snuck into VidCon inside of a fucking llama. I'm not even kidding. It was the Trojan llama incident. He was banned from VidCon and snuck in, and he got arrested for trespassing.
This is my last question, and then I'll pass it off to the panel, because I'm sure they have questions as well. This is my last question, and it has nothing to do with the event. What is your take of Ice Poseidon as a person? That's just out of curiosity.
Okay. This is a good question, actually.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, let me preface, because I know this is just anytime now that we're talking about him, I might as well just say this. I completely am against doing what he did with crypto, with taking advantage of people's stupidity in crypto and taking their money that way.
Yes.
But from a legal perspective, or from like even just a certain perspective, you could say that he was capitalizing off people's stupidity. That's what I would call it, which I don't think is right, granted. But it's also something that a lot of these creators have done, like Logan Paul, like all these like phase guys, and I'm not saying that justifies it, but what I'm trying to say is, like, there's this wave of crypto ignorance because people don't know about it. They don't know how to invest in it properly, and they're getting taken advantage of by the creators, the influencers that they trust. But honestly, it's the creators are digging their own grave by doing that, in the sense that, like, they're betraying the trust of a certain percentage of their audience who invests, or who invest and realize it was stupid and that they were taken advantage of. And they're taking away from their own credibility by doing so. So I think, like, the punishment is almost like inevitable given what you're actually doing. But I think Paul as a person, beyond that, is a very interesting person to me, and always has been. I've been watching his streams since like 2017.
Oh yeah, you've been an old fan of like Twitch culture and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, man, I used to stream IRL. In fact, the way I met Paul was I was IRL streaming in Vegas, because that's where I was living, and he was visiting Vegas. So I like stream sniped him while I was streaming, and we ended up like hanging out and stuff. And then a few more times we met up like in LA and different places. And then I knew that he moved to Austin. I came and visited here about a year ago just to check the place out, because I'd heard about all these people visiting, how it was so nice, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I actually hung out with him when I was here. So I kind of got to see a little bit of a different side of him, who's been like away from the streaming culture, away from sort of his audience, and kind of in a more secluded lifestyle for a while. And he's, he kind of has a hedonistic view with a lot of things, but he's very brutally honest. In a way, I feel like I could trust him, because I feel like he's a very bad liar. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like.
Would you trust him with crypto?
No, absolutely not. No, never with anything financial or even that involves risking my life. But I trust him at his word for most of what he's saying. If that makes sense.
Is he ever going to come back to streaming?
We were talking about him streaming this event. We were going to have a suit where he's wearing a trench coat that has a bunch of different cameras, and each camera is streaming to a different streaming service. So it's like the anti-Twitch streamer's performance art outfit, and then he's going to like come and sit on the stage and like do a panel with us. but that didn't end up happening. That was one of the more ambitious ideas that fell through. We had a whole whiteboard full of ideas, a whole Google Doc, actually.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's all of my questions. If anyone in the panel has anything they want to add, go ahead.
I mean, I think I got everything answered pretty much.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, same. Oh,
no, you go ahead.
I did have one small silly little question that doesn't really matter, but I noticed that in the Lightwave trailer, the @ for Lightwave was misspelled. Was that intentional for a joke, or was that just a genuine mistake?
No, I'm just retarded.
Okay.
Man, the grammar Nazi over here.
I don't know, because he was like saying like the other things were a joke, like the poorly.
I mean,
like,
R is next to C on the keyboard.
Lightwave.
Yeah.
Lightwave. And that's what it's going to turn into eventually. That's the plan. We're going to sell out to China, guys.
Nice.
Oh,
what the fuck? Wait.
Whoa! I thought this was non-corporate, bro.
That's unrelated to what I was saying before.
Oh my god.
Unrelated to unrelated sentences.
Fucking canceled. All right.
Oh no.
Doc on the radio is excited. He's down for it. He knows. Oh my god.
Good one, buddy.
Okay, that was.
Well, anyone else have anything?
Yes.
Aiden, one quick question, and I think we'll move on.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, because I've taken up so much of the time.
Yeah, you have, Aiden. What the fuck?
So much. Shit. Go ahead, Aiden.
Aiden, are you still a communist?
Am I still? You said you were a communist, and your last called me.
No,
yes, you did. You said you were a new communist.
You're insane.
He was really trolling you.
We had this.
No
call
one understands Glink's jokes.
Aiden, have you been abusing drugs?
Have
I been abusing drugs?
I not whatever you're abusing.
Glink, can you do shrooms on the stream right
now?
Glink,
you can't overdo shrooms, right? Just to make sure.
What are you talking about? How do you know that? How do you know? How do you even know?
I'm saying. Do you know that it is possible?
You don't even know,
right? I'm asking you.
Yes, I know it's possible. I would never do shrooms regularly. It's more of an experience that you gain from over time, and you just do when you feel like it's calling to you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Okay. You need to ask that question.
I mean, it's more like
your life.
It's more like something that you could use therapeutically and periodically, but not regularly. I would never do it regularly. I would never do anything that's highly psychoactive regularly. Like that's as intense as shrooms. Now, microdosing is a different deal, but yeah, I mean, if you're willing to do that, that's something else. But yeah.
Okay. Microdosing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's more like a nootropic effect because you don't really actually feel the effects of being like tripping or whatever. What it really is, what shrooms really do is they enhance your visual cortex, and like the way you perceive light becomes more sensitive. And the same thing with your auditory senses. So it enhances those certain parts of the brain that are perceiving these things.
Yeah.
And then your brain also is producing more serotonin, which is different than serotonin blockers like antidepressants, because those block the uptake inhibitors for serotonin, whereas shrooms, actually your brain is producing more serotonin without like a come down that you would have on antidepressants. But anyways, that's just some chemistry.
Well, yeah.
All right, are you done, Aiden? Do you have anything you want to say? And I say one more question, then let's wrap it up. Wrap up the segment. We still got other shit to talk about. Or nothing?
Okay.
No? You're good? Okay. All right. Well, Glink, thank you for coming on, man.
Look out for the documentary. It's gonna maybe this summer. I don't know. Should I do it in parts or one whole thing? What do you guys think?
I was thinking
one whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, one whole thing. I think that's better than parts.
Okay. All right, guys. Peace. Thanks for having me.
All right.
buddy.
All right.
Take care, man.
Bye.
Oh yeah, what's up, Glink?
Oh, hey, Glink.
I forgot to mention this. This just came to mind.
Glink's here?
The canceled VidCon in October was also largely what inspired Lightwave, because I realized we didn't need any like official sponsoring to have a meetup and have a good time.
Oh yeah, that's actually something I was gonna ask.
At the canceled VidCon, you had people.
Yeah, there was people at Lightwave too. You just didn't see them because
the camera didn't pan to the actual audience.
There was The layout of the place was a large warehouse with an outdoor area.
The reason people went to the canceled VidCon was canceled pretty early. Like VidCon was canceled kind of at the last minute, and people already had tickets and Airbnbs booked.
In this case,
you might as well have went
VidCon, there, and then you hosted it.
Like at that point, like I remember from my personal thing, we had booked a nice place out in California, and we had like fucking everything, and they basically canceled it. So we were just like, fuck it. Instead of getting like refunds, we're just gonna go there, and everyone did.
Yeah. Was it like an ego trip or something? Like I can't understand wanting to do a convention. Like, did you think people were gonna like not go to VidCon and go to yours instead? Like you had 3 months of foresight, right?
I wasn't really thinking of competing with VidCon. This was a much bigger picture idea than VidCon. So
if it was a bigger idea, you would have thought about it a little bit longer, right? So you'd know, hey, maybe I shouldn't plan that the week where all the people I know are in LA when I'm doing
Well, wait, hold on a second. Who says that's all the people I know?
Well, I have to assume that based off of the actual turnout for the event, Glink.
I think that, well, you weren't here for the conversation earlier, so you're missing a lot of the...
I will watch it back. I was not, to be fair. I will watch it back.
Okay. Well, we kind of, I think, reached a lot of conclusions based on information that was intentionally kept away from a public audience online, including the address and even all of the guests that were confirmed, both for security concerns and also because it was never meant to be like, hey, come visit this event from wherever you are. It was like, hey, this is going to be streamed, while it's also just this public area where people locally can come check it out and check out the art installations and the panels and such. And there's going to be a party day, and there was, and that was filmed, and that's coming out in the documentary.
Sure, man. Look, I don't. Would you do that again? Everything said and done, if you know, like this
Absolutely.
Is parting ways with $40,000 for this.
Yes, in fact, next time I think it'll be even better.
Time?
Yeah.
Where are you getting more funds for this? Like, is this expendable for you, or are you putting yourself into debt over this? Like,
well, I'm right now. You can view it as it's an investment to something in the future that can be a better event, a bigger event that serves more of the vision of actually bringing a lot of people together.
The bigger event, one day, if it comes into fruition, are you going to charge ticket sales and like turn it more into like a, media brand or something afterwards?
I would definitely not want to do something that could compromise the integrity of the event or of what it stands for. So I would have to weigh that pretty heavily against whether it's going to be a conflict of interest.
What would your ideal return on the investment if it's not monetary?
I think it's hard to say because the potential is. I think there's a lot of potential in a new wave of art and a new wave of culture. And I think there's already a lot of expressions of counterculture out there where people are kind of sick of. Yeah. This is why I also put jokingly working for the FBI. This is a joke that people didn't get over Hassan and Ethan Klein and IDubbbz's girlfriend, Anissa Joma. The reason I did that was sort of like a jokey thing because it's like these guys are sellouts. Like they're working for the man, they're working for the government, they're feds, they're salesmen, whatever it is. They don't have any actual values or morals, in my view. You don't have to agree with it, but I think a lot of people online are starting to feel that way.
I feel like you're right. Like you're right about that. But at the end of the day, they get to go to bed knowing that they have $40,000.
Sure. Okay. Fine. But money isn't everything. That's the other thing. I value things more than beyond just money.
Well, I hope you have enough of it to continue living a stable
life. Me too.
Because again, $40,000 is a lot to drop on a convention like that, and so there's going to be another one. I hope you're being
most of that was invested by people.
Electric Blake?
Third parties?
Hold on.
Wait. Ice Poseidon. Wait a minute. He used the money that he stole from the kids.
Wait.
No, could you imagine if Ice is
George
money?
It's actually not. No, I can confirm for you it's not Ice Poseidon.
Yeah, I'm just
saying, the third party.
You have investors. Wait, I thought this was
No, I don't have Well, Mutahar brought this up before, so it's already out there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have referenced it. But I'll just leave it at this. There was a VC group that was initially interested in being part of the event, in sponsoring it, but at some point, actually, I'll just say this, after the trailer, because of their reaction online, this is what's funny.
because of the reaction to the trailer, it was, it was something that they didn't want to be involved in anymore, and they weren't interested in being associated with. And I understood that because from their perspective, from a business perspective, that's what they had to do. But through the same trailer is actually how a big part of the reason why we got Curtis Yarvin and Louis Rossman is because I sent a lot of these people the trailer and I told them, hey, in Rossman's case, like, hey, we mentioned you, but I'm actually willing to fly you out if you're interested in coming. And, he was down. I didn't contact Boogie, no actual offense to him, but I've just heard a lot of stories about him.
Well, you can't say no offense. You talked about airlifting him, bro.
Right. Well, that was a joke. That was another joke.
What were you worried about Boogie doing at the event?
I didn't want him to be put in. I didn't know.
You don't want him to fire a warning shot, dude.
I did want to invite Sam Hyde, but I couldn't get his contact. That would have been interesting. I wanted to get Mr. Beast. That would have been cool, but
Wait,
I wanted you guys all there too, actually. But what's up?
Just the one thing that I've just been thinking, watching the whole time, is you say that it's an investment, and everything's not about money, but like, what is the point? Like, is it like a personal thing, or is it something you're trying to bring to other people, or like, what is the payoff for the investment?
It's an investment in the future, in the culture, in art, in artists, in people who value something greater than themselves.
Like FoodieTube.
Certainly people that value free expression and keeping that. But beyond that, people that might value something more, you could say, spiritual or existential or philosophical or artistic or whatever it is, but something that's driving them forward that's beyond just money or just a sponsorship, because I think so much of the media environment, of the entertainment environment, is full of sellouts. Like, that's what I call it. That word is actually evaporated from culture, but in the 90s that was kind of like a popular term, because it's like, don't be a sellout, That's why I associated that word actually with the event, with the trailer, with the presentation, because I don't like sellouts. I think iDubbbz is lame. I think Hassan is lame. I think a lot of these people that are just, it's in my view, and you can disagree with it, fine, but they're just totally catering to whatever they think the audience wants.
What makes them specifically sellouts?
The kind of like political slants they take, messaging they use, the sort of like nature of what they do as being informed as a reaction to the culture, to their audience, instead of like actually what I would consider a real artist does is, they don't chase trends, they make trends. They're not waiting for the approval of the culture, whether it's politically or artistically, to do something. They're just doing something as an expression. And I think that's, we've made a lot of references and mostly in jokes to Sam Hyde here. But, I think the reason he came out looking way better and way funnier, certainly, from the exchange with iDubbbz in that documentary, was because he's not going in with any sort of agenda or preconceived notions, or he's not beholden to anybody else's interests or approval, and he can just fuck with someone like iDubbbz, whereas iDubbbz has like these sort of, I would say, like standards or objectives he has to meet, and it has to be a sort of documentary that's tame enough for his audience.
Do a whole event shitting on iDubbbz for being a little fake fuck.
No. I'm just since you guys are like asking about what is the vision and where did it come from. Well, part of I would certainly not define myself as being, or define anything as being, the anti of something else. But in comparison to that, what's going on, I wanted to have something that was more about just not focused on shitting on them, because the event wasn't that at all. I'm doing that a little bit here to explain to you, but to do something that was just, like I said, from people that value something more than just the money, more than just approval from their peers or their audience, people that are just speaking more genuinely, but know what they're talking about, people that are interesting, they're talking about new ideas,